The rise of the adopted father. The throne chamber shook as alarms screamed through the ship. Red lights flashed across the walls and the ground trembled beneath their feet. The robed council members rose from their seats, their calm broken by fear. Outside the massive windows, streaks of fire lit up the void of space. Another fleet had arrived, ships larger and deadlier than the one they stood in. Missiles blazed through the darkness, slamming against shields, rocking the enemy ship. With violent jolts, Daniel shielded the girl as debris rained from the ceiling. He whispered quickly, "Stay with me. Don't let go." The council panicked. "The rebels," one shouted. "They have found us." The robed leader turned sharply to the guards. "Take the heir to the lower chambers. She must not fall into their hands." The guards advanced, weapons glowing. Daniel stepped in front of the girl, his fists clenched, his jaw set like stone. He had nothing but his will, but he would not move. "No," he shouted. "You're not taking her anywhere." The guards hesitated, but only for a moment. They raised their weapons. Before they could fire, the girl screamed. A burst of energy exploded from her chest, slamming into the guards like a wave. They flew across the chamber, their armor sparking as they crashed to the floor. Her eyes blazed, brighter than ever, glowing like suns. But she didn't look frightened anymore. She looked powerful. Daniel steadied her shoulders. "Easy. Control it. Don't let it control you." Her gaze met his, trembling but determined. "I'm trying, Father." The robed leader watched them closely, his face unreadable. He whispered almost to himself, "The heir and the protector, together." But before anything else could happen, the ship shuddered violently. A massive explosion tore through the hull and the chamber filled with smoke and alarms. "Enemy forces have boarded," a voice cried over the speakers. Doors burst open and rebel soldiers stormed in, alien fighters dressed in silver and blue armor. They fired energy rifles, cutting down the shadow guards. Chaos filled the throne room. Daniel grabbed the girl's hand. "We need to move. Now." The rebels saw the child glowing at his side and froze. One soldier shouted, "The heir! Protect the heir!" Suddenly, everyone was fighting around them. Guards against rebels, blasts of light cutting across the chamber. Daniel pulled the girl through the chaos, ducking behind pillars, shielding her from stray fire. But then the armored leader, the dark commander, emerged from the smoke. His mask cracked, his armor scorched, but his fury unbroken. "You cannot escape me," he roared. He hurled a spear of dark energy at them. Daniel shoved the girl aside, taking the blast across his chest. The force knocked him hard to the floor, pain burning through him like fire. The girl screamed. She ran to him, kneeling beside his broken body. "Father, get up." Daniel's vision blurred. He forced a smile through the pain. "I'm not done yet." The commander strode closer, raising his blade. "Pathetic human. You cannot protect her. You never could." The girl's tears glowed silver as they fell onto Daniel's skin. She grabbed his hand, pressing it to her chest. "You can. You always could." In that moment, something shifted. Daniel felt warmth surge through him, not his own, but hers. Their bond blazed like fire. His pain lessened, his strength returned. Energy flowed between them, linking their hearts, their souls. The commander stopped, his eyes narrowing. "Impossible." Daniel rose to his feet, still holding her hand. But now, both of them glowed, his body surrounded by her light, her power magnified by his will. Together, they stepped forward. The commander struck first, his blade slashing with deadly force. Daniel raised his free hand and a shield of pure light appeared, blocking the strike. Sparks exploded. The girl raised her other hand, and a blast of energy surged out, striking the commander square in the chest. He staggered back, roaring in rage. "Father!" she cried. "I'm with you," he answered. They fought as one. His strength, her power. He blocked every strike. She unleashed every blast. The chamber shook with the force of their unity. The rebels and guards stopped fighting, watching in stunned silence as a human and a child faced the enemy leader like gods. Finally, Daniel and the girl pressed their hands together. Light erupted, brighter than a star, and they released it as one. The beam struck the commander, engulfing him in fire and light. He screamed, his body cracking like shattered glass before exploding into nothingness. Silence fell over the throne chamber. Everyone stared, rebels, guards, even the council. The human stood tall, holding the glowing hand of the alien heir, the robed leader lowered his head. The prophecy, it was true. The heir would not rise alone. She would rise with the heart of another world. The rebels knelt, their voices echoing together. Long live the heir. Long live the protector. The girl squeezed Daniel's hand. Tears ran down her face, but she smiled. You're my father, not by blood, but by choice. And that is stronger than anything. Daniel pulled her into his arms, holding her close. Always, he whispered. Always. Outside the window, the rebel fleet surrounded the shadow ships, driving them back into the void. For the first time, Earth and the galaxy had hope. The girl looked up at the stars. Her voice was soft, but strong. We're not alone anymore. And with her human father at her side, she was ready to begin her new life. Not as a curse, not as a prisoner, but as the heir who would protect the universe. The enemy arrives. The cabin shook as the massive ship hovered above the trees. Its shadow swallowed the forest, and its engines hummed like thunder. The girl clung to Daniel, her glowing eyes wide with terror. They've found me, she whispered. They won't stop this time. Daniel held her hand tightly. His chest pounded, but his voice was steady. Then we won't run anymore. We'll face them together. Before he could move, a beam of light poured down from the ship, cutting through the roof like a knife. The cabin splintered, boards flying as if ripped apart by invisible hands. Daniel covered the girl with his body as the floor shook beneath them. When the light faded, they were no longer in the cabin. They stood inside a vast, cold chamber of metal, the ceiling stretched high above them, glowing with strange symbols. The air was heavy and smelled of smoke. Around them stood tall figures in black armor, their faces hidden behind masks. The girl shivered, whispering, "The Shadow Guard." One of the armored figures stepped forward. His voice was deep, echoing across the chamber. "The last heir of the royal bloodline," he said. "At last, you are ours." Daniel pulled the girl behind him. "You're not taking her." The figure tilted his head. "A human protector? How amusing. Do you know what she truly is, human? Do you know the death and destruction her bloodline caused? She is a curse to your world. Hand her over and we may spare your life." Daniel's fists clenched. "I don't care who she was. She's my daughter now, and I'll protect her until my last breath." The armored figure chuckled, a sound that chilled Daniel's blood. "So be it." He raised a hand, and the guards closed in. Daniel grabbed a broken metal rod from the floor. It wasn't much, but it was all he had. He swung it wildly, striking the first guard across the helmet. The alien staggered back, surprised by the human's strength. Daniel shoved another aside, his heart pounding with desperation. But there were too many. One of them slammed Daniel to the ground, knocking the breath from his lungs. Another ripped the rod from his hands. The girl screamed, her eyes blazing like twin suns. A wave of energy burst out from her small body, sending the guards flying backward. Sparks danced across the walls and the air vibrated with power. The armored leader staggered but did not fall. Instead, he laughed. Yes, there it is. The power of the air. Uncontrolled, untamed. You cannot hide it anymore, child. And without control, it will destroy everything, including him. The girl collapsed to her knees, trembling from the effort. Daniel crawled to her side, pulling her close. "Don't listen to him," he whispered. "You're not a curse. You're not alone. I'm here." The leader stepped closer, towering over them. "You cannot fight destiny, human. She belongs to us. Her blood will end what her family began." Daniel stood again, blocking the leader's path. His body ached, but his eyes burned with defiance. "If you want her, he said. You'll have to kill me first. The leader raised a hand, dark energy gathering in his palm. The ship trembled with the force of it. Daniel braced himself, ready to shield the girl no matter what, but before the blast could strike, a voice echoed through the chamber. Enough. Everyone froze. From the far side of the hall, a figure stepped forward, a tall being draped in silver robes, his face hidden beneath a hood. The guards bowed instantly. The leader lowered his hand. My lord. The robed figure studied Daniel and the girl silently. Then he spoke again, his voice calm but filled with power. Bring them to the throne chamber. The council will decide their fate. Daniel tightened his grip on the girl's hand. He whispered to her, Stay close. Don't let go. She looked up at him, her glowing eyes filled with fear but also with trust. Father, she whispered. The word gave him strength. The guards forced them forward deeper into the ship. The halls were endless, lined with strange symbols that pulsed like veins of light. Other prisoners stared at them as they passed. Humans, aliens, all silent with fear. At last, they entered a vast throne chamber. At its center stood a massive seat carved from black stone, glowing faintly. Around it sat figures in dark robes. Their faces hidden, the leader shoved Daniel and the girl to the floor. The heir, he announced, and her protector. The council murmured, their voices like whispers of the dead. One finally spoke. The bloodline lives, the child of the fallen queen. We must end it now, before her power rises again. Daniel pulled the girl into his arms. No, she's just a child. The robed figure from before raised a hand. Silence, human. You do not understand. Her bloodline brought war to countless worlds. If she lives, history will repeat itself. The girl's small voice broke the silence. I don't want war. I don't want to hurt anyone. Tears ran down her silver cheeks. I just want a home. The council fell quiet. Even the guards shifted uneasily. Daniel stood tall, his voice firm. She is not her bloodline. She is more than what you say she is. She's my daughter, and I will not let you kill her. The robed figure studied him for a long moment. Then slowly he lowered his hood. His face was old, marked with scars of war. His eyes glowed faintly like the girl's. She carries the light of her people, he said softly. And you, human, carry the heart to protect it. Perhaps destiny has chosen well. But before anyone could answer, alarms blared through the ship. Red lights flashed. A voice shouted over the speakers, Enemy fleet approaching. Prepare for battle. The throne chamber shook violently as explosions echoed outside. Daniel grabbed the girl, holding her tightly. The war had found them. The truth of her bloodline, the city no longer felt safe. After the incident at the construction site, Daniel and the girl could not return to his apartment. Too many eyes had seen the light. Too many whispers spread through the streets. Somewhere in the shadows, both humans and something beyond humans were looking for them. Daniel found an old cabin outside the city, far in the woods. It was dusty, filled with cobwebs, but it was quiet. He fixed the locks, covered the windows, and made a small bed for the girl. For the first time in days, he allowed himself to breathe. The girl, however, did not rest. She sat near the fireplace, her silver hair glowing faintly, her eyes fixed on the flames. Daniel noticed her hands trembling. You're safe here, he told her gently. No one can find us. She shook her head slowly. They will. They always find me. Daniel crouched beside her. Then tell me, who are they? Why are they hunting you? For a long moment she was silent. Then, with a trembling voice, she began to speak. I was born far away, in the stars. My people lived in great cities that floated above golden clouds. We were strong, proud, and full of light. But then, her eyes filled with tears. Darkness came. Ships like shadows. Fire that burned the skies. They wanted to erase us. Daniel's chest tightened. You mean war? She nodded. My family ruled. My mother, she was the queen. My father, the king. They tried to protect us, but the enemy was too strong. Daniel's breath caught. He stared at the girl in shock. Your royalty? The girl lowered her head. I was the last child of my bloodline. My parents sent me away to hide me. They told me I must survive, because if I survive, hope survives. Her small voice broke and she began to cry softly, but I was too young. I don't remember their faces. I don't remember my name. Only the fire. Only the fear. Daniel placed his hand on her shoulder. His mind spun with the weight of her words. She wasn't just a lost alien child. She was the heir to a fallen throne. You mean to tell me, Daniel whispered, that you are the last of a royal bloodline? The last of your people's rulers? She nodded slowly. If they kill me, my people are gone forever. That is why they chase me. Daniel stared into the fire. He wanted to deny it, to tell himself this was too big, too impossible. But he remembered the glowing symbols, the map, the dreams, and the power that had shaken the earth when she was afraid. He couldn't deny it anymore. You're not just a child, he said quietly. You're the future of an entire world. The girl looked up at him with wide, fearful eyes. But I am weak. I cannot fight them. They will destroy anyone who helps me. Even you. Daniel shook his head firmly. I don't care. You're my daughter now. Whatever your bloodline is, whatever your enemies want, it doesn't change that. Her lips trembled. You would fight for me? I'd fight the whole universe if I had to, Daniel said. And he meant it. At that moment, the fire in the fireplace flickered strangely. The flames twisted into shapes, forming words that neither of them spoke aloud but both understood. Protect her at all costs, Father of the Air. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. Did you see that? The girl nodded slowly, her eyes shining. It's a message from those who are still alive. Somewhere. Daniel stared into the dying flames. Somewhere, survivors of her people were still out there, and they knew about him. They had called him Father of the Air. Before he could process it, the ground outside shook. A low rumble spread through the forest. Daniel grabbed the girl, pulling her away from the window. Through the trees, he saw lights moving, bright, unnatural lights scanning the forest floor. The sound of engines filled the night. They've found us, the girl whispered, her small body shaking. Daniel's grip tightened on her hand. Then we run. But before they could move, a shadow passed over the cabin. He looked up through the roof cracks and froze. A massive ship hovered silently above the trees, its dark surface glowing with strange symbols. Daniel's pulse raced. He knew without doubt this was no human machine. The girl clutched his arm, her eyes glowing fiercely. It's them. The ones who killed my family. They've come for me. Daniel pulled her close, his voice steady despite the fear in his chest. Then they'll have to go through me first. And as the ship's lights poured across the cabin like a spotlight, Daniel realized the truth. His decision to adopt the saddest alien girl had placed him in the center of a war far larger than Earth. But it was too late to turn back now. The unwanted attention. The next few days felt like a storm waiting to break. Daniel tried to keep life normal. Simple meals, small walks, evenings watching the city lights from the window. But nothing was normal anymore. The girl rarely left his side. She clung to him whenever they stepped outside, her glowing eyes scanning every shadow, every stranger. Daniel noticed it too. People were watching them. Sometimes it was just neighbors whispering, but sometimes it was worse. Men in dark coats, parked cars that never seemed to leave, voices on the phone lines that went silent when he answered. One morning, a sharp knock echoed through the apartment. Daniel opened the door and froze. Two men in black suits stood outside. Their faces were expressionless, their eyes hidden behind dark glasses. "Mr. Daniel Carter?" one of them asked. "Yes," Daniel replied carefully. "We're with a government program. the man said calmly. We're monitoring unusual activity in this area. May we come in? Daniel's heart pounded. He glanced back at the girl who was sitting on the couch clutching her blanket. Her glowing eyes widened with fear. Sorry, Daniel said firmly. This isn't a good time. The man's smile was thin. We only want to ask a few questions about the child. Daniel's hand tightened on the door. She's my daughter now, and that's all you need to know. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the hallway. Then the second man spoke, his voice colder. Mr. Carter, she doesn't belong here. You don't understand what you're keeping. In your home. Daniel slammed the door shut. His hands were shaking, but he locked it quickly. Turning around, he saw the girl standing now, her small body trembling. They know, she whispered. They are searching. Daniel hugged her, tightly. I won't let them take you, not now, not ever. But the pressure outside was growing. That night, as they sat together, Daniel heard footsteps in the hallway. Voices. He peered through the peephole and saw more men in black coats. They weren't knocking this time. They were waiting, watching. We can't stay here, Daniel muttered. He grabbed a small bag, throwing in food, water, and a blanket. The girl clutched his arm, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. They slipped out the back door, moving quickly through the narrow alleys of the city. But even in the dark, Daniel felt eyes on them. He glanced behind. 2 men were following. Run, he whispered. The girl's small hand tightened in his as they sprinted through the rain-slick streets. Daniel's lungs burned, his legs aching, but he refused to stop. Behind them, footsteps grew louder. At last, they stumbled into an abandoned construction site. Daniel hid her behind a stack of metal beams, pressing a finger to his lips. They both stayed silent as the men entered, flashlights cutting through the dark. Search everywhere, one of them ordered. She's here, I can feel it. The girl pressed closer to Daniel, her tiny body trembling. He tried to calm her with a whisper. It's okay, I've got you. But then, something changed. Her eyes glowed brighter, so bright they lit the shadows around them. The air grew heavy, filled with an invisible force. The flashlights of the men flickered wildly, then shattered. What the? One of the agents shouted. A sudden wave of energy burst from the girl. The ground shook, metal beams rattled, and a pulse of light spread through the site like a shockwave. Daniel shielded her with his body, but the men were thrown backward, their weapons clattering, to the ground. When the light faded, the site was silent. Dust filled the air, machines lay broken, and the agents were unconscious on the floor. Daniel's chest heaved. He looked down at the girl in his arms. She was shaking, her glowing eyes dimming slowly. I didn't mean to, she whispered. Weakly, Daniel held her tighter. It's not your fault, you were protecting us. But deep inside, he was afraid. Not of her, but of what this meant. She had power. Power beyond anything human. And now, there would be no hiding. As they left the ruined site, Daniel saw something in the night sky. High above the city, barely visible, a shape moved across the stars. It wasn't a plane, it wasn't a satellite, it was a ship. They're coming, Daniel muttered. His voice was filled with dread, but also with determination. The girl looked up at him, her silver hair glowing faintly in the moonlight. They won't stop, she said softly. They will keep searching. Until they find me. Daniel placed his hand on her shoulder, his eyes hard. Then let them come. They'll have to go through me first. The girl's lips trembled. For the first time, she gave him a word filled with hope. Father. And in that single word, Daniel found the strength he needed. Secrets in her eyes. The days passed slowly in Daniel's small apartment, but nothing felt ordinary anymore. Life with the alien girl was filled with strange moments. Sometimes the lights flickered without reason. Sometimes the television showed shapes of stars instead of channels. And sometimes, when Daniel caught her staring out the window at night, he felt as if she was waiting for something. Or someone. She still barely spoke, but little by little she opened up to him. She learned to say his name clearly. She whispered, small words like food, water, and home. Each time Daniel felt proud, like a father teaching his daughter. But her eyes told a different story. One evening, Daniel sat with her at the table. He was helping her draw with crayons, trying to make her laugh. She held a blue crayon in her hand, moving it slowly across the paper. Instead of a house or tree, she drew swirling circles, almost like galaxies. Stars, suns, and planets filled the page with unusual precision for a child. Daniel leaned closer. That's amazing. Where did you learn to draw that? She looked up at him with those glowing eyes. For a second, the room around them disappeared. He swore he could see endless space inside her gaze. Stars burning, worlds turning, a war echoing in the distance. Daniel pulled back, shaking his head. No, I'm just tired. I'm seeing things. But he wasn't. That night, he dreamed of fire. He saw giant ships burning in the sky, cities falling into ruin, and a tall shadow reaching for a silver-haired child who cried out in fear. Daniel woke up covered in sweat, his heart pounding, and when he turned his head, he found the girl already, awake, sitting on the couch staring at him as if she had shared the same dream. Did you see that too? He asked. She hesitated, then gave a slow, sad nod. Daniel sat beside her, running a hand through his hair. Who are you really? He whispered. Where did you come from? Her lips trembled. At last she spoke in a soft, broken voice. I don't remember, but I dream. What do you dream of? Daniel asked, her glowing eyes filled with tears. War, fire, people, calling my name, but I don't know my name. Daniel placed his hand on hers. It doesn't matter right now. You're safe here, with me. But even as he said it, the apartment shook. The windows rattled and the lights dimmed for a moment. Daniel jumped to his feet, rushing to the window. Outside, the city looked normal. Cars, lights, people. But high above the skyline, just for a second, he thought he saw a glimmer. A strange flash like metal reflecting in the night sky. He blinked and it was gone. Maybe it's nothing, he muttered. But deep down, he knew it wasn't. The next morning, the girl surprised him again. She was staring at the cracked glass window, her small fingers tracing the pattern she had burned into it days ago. The symbols glowed faintly as she touched them. What does it mean? Daniel asked carefully. She looked at him, her voice trembling. It's a map. A map? To where? Her eyes glistened with fear. To me. Daniel's blood ran cold. If it was a map, then someone or something could follow it. Later that day, as he walked her to the nearby park, Daniel noticed people staring, not just neighbors this time. Men in black coats stood near a car, watching them closely. When he tightened his grip on her hand, the girl looked up at him nervously. It's fine, Daniel whispered, forcing a smile. We'll just walk. But he couldn't shake the feeling. Someone had noticed her glow, her strange behavior. Someone knew she was different. That evening, while she slept curled up on the couch, Daniel sat awake at the table, staring at the map-like symbols on the broken glass. His mind raced. He thought about the dreams, the war, the flash in the sky, and the men in coats. This was no coincidence. He turned his head to look at her, her silver hair shining faintly in the dark. She looked so fragile, yet there was something powerful inside her, something dangerous. As he watched, her eyes opened slowly. She didn't move, didn't speak. But Daniel saw it again. Reflected in her glowing eyes was not his apartment, not the city, but a galaxy far away. Planets circling, ships moving like insects, and shadows spreading across the stars. It was as if her eyes were windows into her lost world. Daniel leaned closer, whispering, "What are you trying to show me?" Her lips parted. In a soft, almost broken voice, she said one word. Enemy. Daniel's heart stopped. Enemy? Here? On Earth? She shook her head slowly. Coming. Before he could say anything else, a loud noise echoed from outside, the sharp roar of engines. Daniel rushed to the window. In the distance above, the clouds' lights blinked unnaturally in the sky. Not planes, not satellites, something else. He stepped back, his face pale. No, this can't be happening. Behind him, the girl whispered again, her small voice trembling but certain. They found me. Strange signs at home. The storm followed Daniel and the girl all the way home. His small apartment was not much, just 2 rooms, a kitchen, and a window that overlooked the busy city streets. It was not the kind of place made for raising a child, but it was warm, safe, and full of something she had never known before. Kindness. Daniel set her down gently on the old couch. She sat quietly, still hugging her knees as if afraid someone might take her away. Her glowing eyes scanned the room, watching the flicker of a broken lamp, the hum of the refrigerator, the pile of books stacked in the corner. Daniel knelt in front of her. This is home, he said softly. It's not perfect, but it's ours now. You don't need to be afraid here. The girl tilted her head, saying nothing. Her silver hair fell like a curtain over her face. But when Daniel placed a blanket around her shoulders, she clutched it tightly, almost as if it was the most precious thing she had ever owned. That night, Daniel tried to cook something simple, soup and bread. He wasn't a great cook, but the smell filled the small apartment with warmth. As he stirred the pot, he felt a pair of eyes watching him. The girl sat at the table, her chin resting on her small hands, staring as if the act of cooking was something magical. He smiled nervously. It's not much, he said, but you'll like it. When he placed the bowl in front of her, she hesitated. Then slowly, she picked up the spoon and tasted it. For a long moment, she stayed silent. Daniel, worried she didn't like it. But then, to his surprise, a tiny, almost invisible smile appeared on her face. Daniel's heart melted. That little smile was more rewarding than anything he had felt in years. But as the night went on, strange things began to happen. The old clock on the wall suddenly stopped ticking. The light bulb above them flickered on and off, even though the storm had passed. When Daniel reached for the radio to check the weather, static burst from the speakers, followed by a whisper in a language he could not understand. The girl's spoon froze halfway to her mouth. Her glowing eyes shifted toward the radio. Daniel frowned, tapping the device. It's just broken, he muttered. But when he looked back at her, she was staring at him with wide, fearful eyes, as if she already knew what was happening. Later, that night after she had fallen asleep on the couch, Daniel sat at the table thinking. He should have been afraid. The caretaker's words echoed in his mind. Strange things happen when she's around. But when he looked at her, curled up beneath the blanket, breathing softly, he felt only a strange protectiveness. She wasn't dangerous. She was just a child. Lonely, fragile, lost. Daniel whispered to himself, "Whatever happens, I'll keep you safe." The following day, things became stranger. When he opened the front door to collect the morning mail, he found his neighbors whispering in the hallway. An old woman pointed toward his apartment. The lights were flashing all night, she said. Did you see that storm around his windows? Another man shook his head. Mark my words, something unnatural lives in there. Daniel pretended not to hear, shutting the door quickly. When he turned around, he found the girl standing behind him, clutching the blanket again. She had heard everything. He crouched down, placing a hand on her shoulder. Don't listen to them. They don't understand you, but I do. Her glowing eyes softened. For the first time, she whispered a word in her small, trembling voice. Daniel. He froze. You know my name? She nodded. Somehow, though, he had never told her she already knew. That night, Daniel awoke to a strange sound. The apartment was filled with soft humming, like the low vibration of energy, He followed the sound to the living room and stopped in shock. The girl was standing near the window, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. Symbols, strange, shifting patterns of light, were forming on the glass. They twisted and moved like living constellations. "Hey," Daniel whispered gently, stepping closer. "What are you doing?" The girl turned her head slowly. Her voice was soft, but the words were not English. The sound was ancient, otherworldly, and powerful. The moment she spoke, the glass cracked with a sharp snap. The symbols vanished, leaving only spiderweb fractures across the window. Daniel rushed forward, pulling her into his arms before she could collapse. Her small body trembled, her skin glowing faintly. "It's okay," he whispered, holding her close. "It's okay, you're safe." But inside, his heart was racing. She was not just an ordinary alien child. Something was hidden deep within her, something the world was not ready to see. As he carried her back to the couch, she clung to him tightly. Her lips moved again, and this time he understood the single word she whispered in English. "Home." Daniel froze, staring at her. She had called his apartment her home. He smiled softly, brushing her silver hair from her face. "Yes, this is your home now, and no matter what happens, I'll be here." But as the night grew quiet again, Daniel felt a strange weight pressing in the air, as if invisible eyes were watching them from beyond the stars. The girl was no ordinary orphan. She was something far greater. And soon, the universe would come searching for her. The rain was falling on the city that night, and the streets were glowing with neon lights. People hurried under umbrellas, cars rushed through puddles, and the world felt cold and busy. Far away from the noise of the crowd, there was an old building. Its windows were dim, and a sign outside said, "Alien Care Shelter." Few humans ever went inside. Most people were afraid of the place, afraid of the creatures who had nowhere else to go. Inside the shelter, the rooms were quiet. There were cages and resting spots for different alien children, rescued after wars or lost between worlds. Some of them played together, some just stared at the walls. But in one dark corner sat a little girl, smaller than the rest. Her skin had a faint silver tone, and her big glowing eyes looked like they carried the weight of the stars. Everyone in the shelter knew her. They called her the saddest alien girl. She never laughed, never played, never asked for food. She only sat silently, staring at the night sky through a small cracked window. The workers at the shelter whispered about her. Some said she was cursed. Some believed she was dangerous. No one wanted to take her home. That evening, a man named Daniel entered the shelter. He wasn't rich, he wasn't powerful, but he had a kind heart. His life had been lonely, and he often felt out of place in the world. He came to the shelter because he wanted to help, maybe even adopt a child who had no family. The caretaker greeted him, showing him the rooms. "Most of them are easy to handle," she said, "but stay away from her." She pointed to the girl in the corner. "She is different. Strange things happen when she is near." Daniel followed her finger and saw the little girl for the first time. She was hugging her knees, head down, her silver hair falling over her face. For some reason, his chest tightened. He ignored the caretaker's warning and walked closer. "Hello?" he said softly. "What's your name?" The girl slowly raised her head. Her glowing eyes met his. For a second, Daniel felt like he was staring into a galaxy, stars, planets, and endless darkness inside her gaze. She didn't speak. She only looked at him, silent and fragile. "She doesn't talk," the caretaker explained quickly. "We tried many times. No memory of her home, no family. She's trouble, believe me. You should choose another child." But Daniel couldn't look away. Something in those eyes called to him. He remembered his own lonely nights, the times he felt invisible in the world. He saw the same loneliness in her. Kneeling down, he stretched out his hand. "You don't have to say anything," he whispered. "I know how it feels to be alone, but I promise, You won't be alone anymore." For a moment, the girl didn't move. Then, very slowly, she placed her small silver hand in his. The instant their skin touched, something happened. A faint glow spread across her arm like hidden markings waking up after years of sleep. Daniel gasped softly, but instead of pulling away, he held her hand tighter. The girl's lips trembled, and for the first time a single word escaped her mouth. "Father?" Daniel froze. The caretaker stared in shock. The other children in the shelter went silent, watching with wide eyes. Daniel didn't know why she called him that. She didn't know either. But in that moment, something powerful connected them. He stood up, lifting the girl gently in his arms. She was light as air, her head resting on his shoulder. The caretaker hurried forward. "Wait, you don't understand. Strange things happen when she's around. Are you sure you want her?" Daniel looked at the little girl who was now clutching his shirt tightly as if afraid he would let go. He gave a firm nod. "Yes, she's mine now. She belongs with me." The caretaker sighed, shaking her head. "You have no idea what you're getting into." Daniel didn't care. He carried the girl out into the rainy night, wrapping his coat around her small body. For the first time, she closed her glowing eyes and let herself rest. But as they walked away from the shelter, Daniel felt something strange. The streetlights above them flickered, one after another. The air grew heavier, charged with invisible energy. He glanced at the girl. Even though she was silent, her skin glowed faintly under the rain. Daniel's heart beat faster. He didn't understand what she was, or why fate had pushed her into his arms. But deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. What he didn't know was that by adopting the saddest alien girl, he had just changed not only his own future, but perhaps the future of the entire universe.